Hi, my name is Dana Brower. I'm the owner of Elamisha LLC, which is a home-based bakery. And I'm also the owner of Knots in Maine, which is a natural products and herbal shop. Um, Today, we'll be talking about value-added production, some laws and rules for working in a retail setting or a commercial kitchen. Let's see, 1 second if we can get to that slide. Um, the laws and rules we'll be covering today are regulated by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Their phone number, website, and contact information is right here. Everything that we're talking about today can be found on their website. We're going to skip over the cottage food rules because if you're working in a commercial kitchen, at this point, you've graduated your product from a cottage food operation to a commercial or retail setting. So we'll pass over all of the home-based rules right here. We'll start here at mobile food establishments. Some people that are selling their products or prepackaged products, products that have already gone through a food processing plant, or you've already set up your product, you've already taken your product, you've already taken your product from a cottage food product to a commercial product. You've already done that process. You're now ready to sell your product in a commercial kitchen. I'm sorry, you're now ready to sell your product in a retail setting. One of those retail settings that the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services regulates is the mobile food establishment. Okay, so these laws and rules can be dry. We're going to try to break them down as much as possible and make them as simple as possible and easy to understand as possible. Okay, so for mobile food establishments, are individuals selling foods other than fresh fruits and vegetables from trucks or similar, products. You're selling your prepackaged, commercially packaged product from a non-fixed structure, tables, booths, kiosks in a retail setting. Okay, so you're selling prepackaged products that are non-potentially hazardous, foods that are not temperature controlled, coffees, cakes, pies, popcorns, candies, raw fresh products that have not gone through processing, meaning like a fish or shrimp with the heads on, and fresh juice that meets specific requirements. Okay, so we're going to review a few definitions that are going to come up here. A certified food manager is a person responsible for all aspects of food operations for the food establishment. You have to have a certified food protection manager while you're working in a commercial kitchen. You'll also need a commissionary agreement with the department. Basically what that is saying you have a place that's safe to prepare your products. You have a place that has hot water, that has sinks, place that you can sanitize your products before they go out into your mobile food establishment. A mobile food establishment is a food establishment that is self-propelled like a truck or a food truck that you can move from place to place. It's not prefixed. Potentially hazardous foods are foods that require temperature control, anything that can get pathogens and microorganisms like E. coli. Those are potentially hazardous foods. Potable water is water that's safe to drink and clean and clean your products and your utensils. A hazardous analysis critical control point. Some of these words are going to trip me up. I'm sorry. A HACC plan is is a written document identifying food safety hazards in your process and how you will control these inherent hazards. If you've already gone through the food processing if you've already taken your product to the point of selling in a commercial kitchen, you should know what these words are. You've already taken your product through these processes and you should have these things in place. Mobile food establishments meet all, sorry, these are the actual laws and rules. Let's go back. These are the actual laws and rules for the mobile food establishment. We're gonna run through these really quick. I'll try not to read all of them. They're really, really long, so I'll try to break most of them down, if I haven't already, to a shorter version. Mobile food establishments shall meet all applicable requirements as specified in the mobile food permit requirements incorporated by reference and available online. So you shall make all of the requirements that the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services has put in place prior to putting your mobile food establishment in operation. All of those rules and requirements are online. They have links to every process, and they have links to every permit. They make it as easy as possible for you. Okay, so each mobile food establishment not operating in conjunction with a food permit establishment will require its own permit and is subject to its own fees. So if you're not working with a store or restaurant, or you're not working in a church commissionary, if you don't already have a food establishment in place for your business, you will require one. And you'll also require one for each additional mobile food establishment. So if you have 2 trucks, you're going to require a permit for 2 trucks. You shall not operate independently of your commissionary. So each mobile food establishment must have a place where they clean their products, where you have a 3 compartment sink, where you have a place to sanitize. You have to have a commissionary in place before you begin operation. If you do not have a commissionary in place, you are not allowed to begin operations. Your commissionary letter should be updated or renewed on an annual basis. I'm pretty sure that they have notices go out to renew you, to notify you that your commissionary letter is up for renewal. The mobile food establishment shall make that agreement available if requested for. Each mobile food establishment has to report into their commissionary daily to replenish supplies, clean their utensils, equipment, to sanitize everything. The exception to that rule is mobile food establishments that sell only pre-packaged foods, that your hands do not come in contact with, nothing that's open. Okay, so if you're a mobile food establishment and you're moving from one place to place, maybe one city to another city, you need to make sure that you have a commissionary in every place that you travel to. So if you're going to St. Pete, say for instance, and you're going to be doing business there for a couple of days, you need to make sure that you have a commissionary in St. Pete where you can check into daily. Oh, I'm sorry. A commissionary letter is also required for each commissionary location. Mobile food establishments shall not process or prepare potentially hazardous foods within the mobile food establishment without first obtaining a food permit. Okay, so you can't prepare, cut, cook, or combine ingredients inside your mobile food operation unless you have a retail food permit from the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. There are links there. We'll review that process here a little bit later on in the information. Exemptions from that rule are mobile food establishments that are only selling fresh fruits and vegetables. Your commissionary has to be a retail food establishment, a public food establishment, or food service establishment, meaning that your commissionary has already gone through the inspection process of being a retail food establishment, a place where inspections are done regularly and it's safe to prepare your products there. Okay, let's see. Mobile food establishments are not allowed to process, prepare, expose potentially hazardous foods within their mobile establishment without a food permit. We just went over that one. You need a retail food permit if you're going to process or cook anything or serve anything that might be potentially hazardous to the public. Full service mobile food dispensing vehicles that process, prepare potentially hazardous foods within the mobile unit, like hot dogs and hamburgers, should contact the Department of Business and Professional Regulations. Okay, so if you're cooking, if you're preparing anything, anything other than prepackaged foods, that's a whole nother set of licensing. That licensing begins with DBPR. If you are an institution and you have maybe a cafeteria or something that you're serving food from or selling food from, you'll have to contact the Department of Health. That's also another set of licensing and certifications and fees that you will have to be approved and go through that process for. Mobile food establishments must have a current agreement with a commissionary and be capable of visiting the commissionary each day of the operation. We've already said that you'll have to go to your commissionary, check in every day and make sure that your mobile food establishment is all of your utensils, serving contacts, oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? The places where you prepare your food, everything's sanitized. Anything that comes in contact with food has to be cleaned and sanitized daily. That's where you do those items at commissionary. Food products sold must be approved sources, such as inspected and permitted food establishment. Cottage food items are not approved to be sold from mobile food establishments. Okay, so the products that you're selling, again, if you are selling your food in a retail setting, you have already taken your product from a cottage food category, and you've already had your product processed, maybe in a food processing plant, or maybe you process those items in a commercial kitchen yourself. So those are the only items that can be sold from a mobile food establishment. Your cottage food items cannot be sold there. Okay, so raw milk containing harmful disease-causing bacteria and shall not be sold or provided for human consumption. We only use pasteurized milk, canned flour, so raw food, eggs that haven't gone through inspection, those such things cannot be sold in your mobile food establishment. Any mobile food establishment that is in an open air environment must protect the food from weather environment contaminations, dust, rain, bugs, rodents. Don't have your products sitting out on the counters where anything can get to it. Items should be protected from the elements. Must provide only single serve articles for use by the consumer. So if you're serving your prepackaged item, it's going to be a single serve item, something that cannot be for use. MFEs cannot operate at multiple locations at the same time under a single mobile food establishment permit. So if you have 2 trucks, you need 2 permits. Food products and supplies must be stored only at permitted commissionaries and warehouses and not in private residences. Again, if you're taking your product from a cottage food setting to a retail food setting and you're still storing it at your house, more power to you, but that's not allowed. All of your products must be supplied where you're making them in your commissionary in a controlled setting where there's inspections done regularly and the place is clean, rodent-free, bug-free, etc. MFE, MFEs may provide prepackaged food items that are labeled as required. You'll follow the regular label laws, but on this particular label, you'll include artificial colorings, flavors, chemicals, preservatives. Allergens are included on a regular food label for cottage food, net weight or volume, the name and the place of the business of the manufacturer, packager, or distributor. Packaging materials must be manufactured from food grade materials. Single-use articles must not be used. So everything that you use for food items must be food grade, and those items must not be reusable. Okay, so MFEs may be permitted to have a process. Start over. MFEs may be permitted to have or process food items such as ice, confections, slushies, smoothies, so forth. Non-potentially hazardous beverages with or without ice, with or without garnishment, as long as they're non-potentially hazardous. Pastries, popcorns, cookies, candies, nuts, candied nuts, cotton candy, candied apples, coffee, dairy with dairy products or without dairy products, as long as these products are non-potentially hazardous, and if that operation has the equipment, utensils, and facilities needed to protect the food. All water must be drinkable. All water you must be able to clean your hands, clean your dishes, you must be able to clean your product. If water is not available from traditional state-approved plumbing, potable tanks may be used for hand washing purposes as allowed by food code. Okay, and number 16 is all of the requirements that your potable tank will need. This is the area where this is the section where I would hand it to my husband and let him read all of that. But all of the requirements for your tank are there. Follow those requirements and you should have no problems. Again, the liquid tank, this is laws and rules that are specific to your waste holding tank. You'll need waste holding tanks that meet all of these requirements, 15% larger than your potable water supply tank. All of those requirements must be met for your liquid waste holding tank. Specific requirements are based on the type of food sold and processed. Okay, so below there's a little chart here that has all of these laws and rules for the specific type of food that you are selling. So let's just run through that real quick. Prepackaged non-potentially hazardous foods, MFEs, which limit food sales to prepackaged non-potentially hazardous foods, must have adequate space storage for the food products so that the food is protected, containers for solid waste, and maintain cleanable non-food contact services. Pretty simple. Excuse me, let's go back here. Prepackaged potentially hazardous food. The MFEs, which have food sales or prepackaged potentially hazardous foods, must meet a certified food protection manager on site. You need storage space for the food products. You need containers for solid waste. You need to maintain a cleanable non-food contact surfaces, refrigerations, heating, or hot holding equipment to keep your food at proper temperature, thermometers, and capacity to sanitize on site. Prepackaged individual portion frozen novelties. MFEs that sell prepackaged frozen desserts such as popsicles must have sufficient freezer space for storage of frozen food products. You need to protect those food products from the element. You need to maintain clean surfaces and spaces, thermometers, and containers for solid waste. Okay, so juice has a whole set of different regulations here. Juice must meet all of these requirements, and if you do not meet these requirements, you cannot sell a fresh juice product. Your product has to go through a food processing plant. So we'll run through the fresh squeezed juice processes really quick here. MFEs that extract and sell juice by the glass are permitted to squeeze fresh fruit juice at a mobile site without any of the following: a HACC plan or E. coli testing, or display a warning placard providing the following conditions are met. You need a certified food manager on site. Juice is extracted and provided by the glass, single serve containers on it. Juice is extracted is and enclosed. Juice is extracted in an enclosed juice machine. Hand squeezing of juice is prohibited. MFEs has on its premises a working hand sink with hot and cold potable water pressure. You have your equipment, all equipment on site, ready to be, all of your utensils and equipment that are on site have already been washed, rinsed, sanitized, and protected from the elements or contamination. You're also allowed to have extra equipment on site. If you do not or cannot have that extra equipment on site for use, then you need to be able to make it back to your commissionary. Juice machines must be washed, rinsed, and sanitized in a 3-compartment sink with hot and cold water before and after use, or during any interruption of business, usually 4 hours. You would need to wash and re-sanitize your juice equipment. All fruits juices must be washed. All fruits and vegetables must be washed, rinsed, sanitized, and protected from contamination during the entire process, meaning after it's been washed, rinsed, and sanitized, it needs to be protected in sealed containers away from contamination before use. Single-use gloves must be worn by anyone handling fresh fruit, food, or vegetables while juicing is being served or dispensed. Okay. We're continuing on here with the juice section. MFEs can sell prepackaged juices without a HACC plan or E. coli testing if you meet the below requirements. MFEs can sell prepackaged fresh juice if the entity extracts the juice is a permanent food establishment that complies with the FDA. So if you are processing your food in a permitted food establishment, then you will not have to meet those requirements. If the prepackaged juice is sold by a mobile food establishment, the prepackaged juice must be held at 41 degrees and be properly labeled with a warning or meet a 5 log reduction. Okay, so if you're a mobile food establishment and you're selling juice in your mobile food establishment that is prepackaged, it will need to be held in a refrigerated space that's at least 41 degrees below. It needs to contain all of the proper warning labels, which you should have already. If you've taken your product from making it to a retail product, you should already know what those warning labels are. And you also should be aware of what a 5 log reduction is, which is pretty much a label that says that you've taken your product through these processes that will reduce the number of microorganisms or pathogens that get into your product, such as E. coli. A warning label can only be used if the mobile food establishment is the same business entity as the permanent food establishment extracting and packaging the juice. Okay, so you have to be the same business. You can't be two separate businesses. Your place of the place that is holding the permanent food establishment must also be your business, the mobile foods business. Warning labels should read: warning, this product has not been pasteurized and therefore may contain harmful bacteria that can cause serious illness in children, the elderly, and persons with weakened immune systems, as stated by the Food Code. If the prepackaged juice is from a different business entity other than the MFEs, the juice must have a 5-log reduction per code. MFEs that extract and package juice must comply with all the rules and regulations that are set forth, but is not limited to an adequate HACC plan affixing a warning label to the prepackaged 5-log reduction. It may be include a 5-log reduction or E. coli testing of the product and sanitation procedures. Okay, that ends the juicing part. All that information is located on the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services website. They have links to all of the food codes, and they also have links to all of the applications necessary to apply for juicing or a food permit. Okay, so on to the next section is bulk dispensing of potentially hazardous foods. MFEs that have food sales, which include preparation of non-potentially hazardous foods or dispense bulk non-potentially hazardous foods such as nuts, teas, candies, spices, or pickles. Pickles, however, might have to go through another food process, such as the I think it's the acidified food process. So anything that has acid or is a vinegar might have to go through that process. Continuing on, all of those items must comply with the following. You must have present a certified food manager on site, have adequate space, adequate space for storage of your food that protects the food, have containers for solid waste, have potable water, maintain clean food contact surfaces and non-food contact surfaces, processes on operating hand sinks in the unit with hot and cold running water, possesses wastewater tank 15% larger than the potable water. No bare hand contact for ready-to-eat foods is permitted. A 3-compartment sink must be accessible within the unit or at the commissionary. If the 3-compartment sink is provided by a commissionary, then the MFEs must have extra equipment and utensils on the mobile unit. They have already been washed and rinsed, sanitized, and protected from the elements or contamination for use as described by the FDA code. Okay, I'm not sure how many of you guys are gonna be working with raw seafood, but we'll run through it really quickly. Raw seafood products that are allowed to be sold are raw fish products, head-on shrimps, anything that hasn't gone through a food processing or let's just say seafood in its raw state. In order to sell those products, you would need a calibrated scale, you need refrigeration or ice, you need a thermometer, containers for solid waste, you need potable water, wastewater container large enough to hold all wastewater generated within the unit, and hand washing capabilities. Containers, coolers with wet ice used to maintain fish products at the proper temperature must be self-draining with the wastewater flowing into a liquid wastewater holding tank. You cannot just pop the cooler, the little button on the side of the cooler, tip it over and let your wastewater run off on to the ground. You need to have tanks to hold that. Okay, we have a note here. If an MFE operation sells a combination of food products, the food products sold with the most stringent, the food products sold with the most stringent requirements for food protection must be followed. Food types 1 and 3, prepackaged non-hazardous food, and prepackaged individually portioned frozen novelties listed above may not require commissionary. Determination will be based on the food sold and an MFE type and capabilities. Okay, we'll just review the commissionary letter. We're required to do business really quick. MFEs, the commissionary letter is required with every application, and this is what must be included in that commissionary letter. MFE is required to have a written agreement with a commissionary, must complete the commissionary letter of agreement. The commissionary letter of agreement is to be submitted with the permit application at the initial inspection. Permit approval is contingent upon verification of approved commissionary facility. Okay, so before your application is approved, your commissionary facility has to go through an inspection and be approved. After the MFE permit is issued, the commissionary letter of agreement is to be completed and signed by the MFE owner and the owner of the commissionary on an annual basis. MFEs are to have commissionary letter of agreement available to Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Service food inspectors during inspection. Each mobile food establishment shall report to commissionary each day of operation to store or replenish supplies, clean utensils and equipment, or dispose of liquid and solid waste, with the exception of mobile food establishments that sell only prepackaged foods and have all necessary support equipment located on the unit. Okay, last one. For mobile vehicles, a service area may be provided at the commissionary for cleaning and servicing the mobile vehicle. The service area must be equipped to furnish potable water and provide facilities for drainage and the disposal of liquid waste. The exterior of the mobile unit is permitted to be washed at any location, provided the wastewater does not cause a sanitary nuisance. Okay, so you can, the interior of your mobile food unit needs to be cleaned at a designated location at the commissionary. Everything needs to be washed and sanitized. You can wash the outside of your unit anywhere as long as you're not dumping any water from inside the unit that might be potentially hazardous to the environment or people. All right, so we've gotten through the mobile unit laws and rules. We have stepped into now, it looks like the retail section of laws and rules. For the retail section here, again, if you're at the point where you're selling your products at a retail location, you've already taken your product from cottage food, you're now producing your product or looking to produce your product in a commercial kitchen. If you are producing your product in a commercial kitchen, your food product usually has to go through a food processing plant. If you are packaging those products yourself in a commercial kitchen, as long as that commercial kitchen is a permitted food retail space, then you should be able to also sell your product in a retail setting, such as mobile food unit. Okay, so we'll run through these a little bit. We'll run through these rules. So try not to make it as dry. I'll try to shorten as many as I can. Some of them are quite long. So we'll see if we can get through them fairly quickly here. Okay, so retail food establishment permit in Florida is regulated by also the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Specific aspects of these rules will be shared with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Okay, so a retail food establishment operation is any part of a food establishment involved in the processing, packaging, holding, or preparing of food for sale directly to the public. Businesses that typically fall in that category are convenience stores, grocery stores, supermarkets, coffee shops, retail bakeries, retail meat markets, seafood markets, smoothie bars, businesses. This is where we fall in. Businesses selling prepackaged foods, including hemp extract intended for human consumption, and and also the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services mobile food units selling any prepackaged foods or non-potentially hazardous food items. Okay, all right, so we're gonna run through these food laws really quickly. Like I said, I'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. Reading these laws and rules are quite tedious, but they make it kind of overly complicated. You can break it down to regular language is quite easy to understand. Okay, so rule number 1A, a food permit from the department is required of any person who operates a food establishment or retail food, except persons operating minor food outlets that sell food that is commercially packaged, not potentially hazardous, and not time or temperature controlled for safety. So the except this person, if you're not selling commercially prepackaged product, if you are selling commercially prepackaged products, this rule does not apply to you. Okay. If the shelf space for those items does not exceed 12 total linear feet and no other food is sold by the minor food outlet. Persons subject to continuous on-site federal or state inspection. So if you are being inspected regularly, this does not apply to you. Persons selling legumes or nuts, parched peanuts, boiled peanuts, this rule does not apply to you. Persons selling sugar cane, honey, syrup, anything that's been boiled on a premises within the state. Such bottles must contain a label listing the producer's name, street address, all added ingredients, basic label laws, and the statement that this product has been produced in a facility permitted by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. This rule does not apply to you. All right, 1B. Each food establishment and retail food store regulated under this chapter must apply for and receive a food permit before operation begins. All right, so an application for a food permit from the department must be completed, and all of the following must be complied with. You must submit a fee in the amount determined by the department. The department shall adopt a rule of fees for each food establishment. Those fees are basically set by each food type. Food permits are not transferable from one person to another, one person or physical location. You can't transfer your food permit to your mother working at her restaurant. Your permit is for you at the location that you applied for. Food permits must be renewed annually. The department is, the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services is the regulating agency for this type of permit. Application for food permit must be made on the forms that are provided by the department. Those forms will also contain provisions for the applications, permits issued by other state agencies, and for application of the food permits, food permit fees, licensing, or applicable surcharges. So with the applications, you need to submit all necessary attachments that they're asking for. If your food type requires additional licensing, say from the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, those attachments need to be attached. If you have additional licensing from other departments, and that needs to be attached. Everything that they're requesting for the application needs to be attached at the time of submittal. The excuse me, the department may, by rule, establish conditions for the manufacturing, processing, packaging, holding, or preparing of food, the selling of food at warehouses or retail, or the transporting of food in order to protect the public from receiving a product that might be deceitful or either harmful. So unlike cottage food the cottage food category, the department has the right to set and put in place rules that will protect the public from buying a product from your retail establishment that might be harmful to them, or either a product that is being marketed as deceitful, or not being marketed as deceitful, but it's being marketed and the product has deceitful practices. Okay, so when any person applies for a building permit to construct, convert, or remodel any food establishment, food outlet, or food or retail food store, the authority issuing such permit shall make available to the applicant a printed statement provided by the department regarding the application sanitation requirements for such establishment. Okay, basically what they're saying is that if you're applying for a food permit, the department must make available to you a list of everything that you need to get your establishment up and running. So if there are sanitation requirements, there needs to be a list for that, or there is a list for that. If there is an actual checklist online. So those documents are available. Basically, they want you to make sure that you go through all of those checklists and make sure that there's a check or an answer to everything before submitting your application. Okay, so the department shall furnish for distribution a statement that includes the checklist to be used by the food inspector in any pre-operational inspections to ensure that the food establishment is constructed and equipped to meet the applicable sanitary guidelines. Again, basically what they're saying is the department will make sure that they provide to you a list of requirements needed to meet all of your sanitation requirements and any other building requirement needed to complete your application. The department may provide assistance when requested by the applicant. Okay, so if you need assistance or you need help on site, and you need help to make sure that you're getting all of your checklist items correct, the department will supply someone to you, or get someone to come out and assist you. There may be a fee for it though. A building permit authority or other subdivision or local government may not require the department to approve construction or remodeling plans for food establishments and retail food stores as a condition of any permit or license at the local level. So basically what they're saying is they have the right to approve or not approve your building permit. Usually if you've not completed something on your checklist, or something might be halfway completed and almost there, they reserve the right to approve or deny. Any person sell, okay, this one was funny to me. Okay, so if you are selling candy that contains alcohol, you will have to go through a certain set of permitting. You might have to apply with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation that regulates alcohol, but though that at the time of applying, the department will determine if you need additional permitting, and basically they'll go from there. But basically what they're saying in this rule is that if you're serving alcohol in your candy, you're going to need to let them know right away while you're during your application process. The department may suspend immediately upon notice any permit issued under this section if it finds that any of the conditions or the permit have been violated. So if you violated any law, rule, or regulation set forth in this rule, the department reserves the right to suspend your business immediately. The department shall have access to any food establishment for the purpose of ascertaining compliance with this section. Denial could get your business closed down, revoked, get your license revoked, basic disciplinary action. So if if someone, an inspector from the department shows up, you need to be prepared. Your business needs to be prepared to let them in. Okay, so there are a lot of rules and regulations. There are a lot of departments. There are a bunch of different food types, and the department and legislator are trying to prevent duplication of processes. So different departments will regulate different foods. So food establishments or retail food stores that have ancillary food services activities shall be permitted and inspected by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Food establishments that have ancillary, that word gets me. Prepackaged food, retail food sales shall be regulated by the Department of Health. Public food service establishments which have ancillary prepackaged retail food sales shall be licensed and inspected by DBPR, and the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, DBPR, shall cooperate to assure equivalency of inspection and enforce and to share information. Basically, they'll work together to make sure that the rules aren't being duplicated, that food permit applicants are applying in the appropriate places. Okay, I guess that wasn't so painful. It looks like we're getting to the end here. The department shall adopt rules for the training and certification of managers of food establishments and food service establishments regulated under this section, and for the training and certification of department personnel. In conducting any pre-operational or inspection, the department may enforce provisions of the Florida Building Code related to food establishments. A person who applies for or renews a local business tax certificate to engage in business as a food establishment or retail food store must exhibit a current food permit or an active letter of exemption from the department before a local business tax certificate may be issued or renewed. So basically they're going through, the department will, has rules for certified food managers. There's also certified food manager training available, and most retail food services, mobile food services need to have a certified manager on site in conducting any, excuse me. The department is going to enforce any laws and rules that might be broken, be prepared for an inspector to, I say it's just best to keep your business in operational order and be prepared for an inspector to walk in at any day. You want to make sure you've applied for all of your licensing, all of your permits are current, any tax notices for your business need to be paid, and have all of those items in place in preparation for if anyone walks in and asks for them. All right, in summary, laws and rules can be a little intimidating at times, but intimidation don't stop a show. Don't let a little intimidation stop your show. You read over these rules, they can be a little colluded sometimes. Just clean them up a little bit and make it to where you can understand what it's saying. If you don't understand what it's saying, reach out to the department. Don't be ashamed. There is no stupid question when you're trying to make your dreams come true. So reach out to the department if you don't understand something. Or maybe reach out to a business savvy friend, but just don't leave the question unanswered. Thank you very much for listening and have a great day.